The grand hall of the Order of the Flame was filled with a tense silence, broken only by the occasional crackle of the eternal fire at its center. Around the fire sat the council of elder mages, their expressions grim as they absorbed the reports of the recent attacks. Eldric, the eldest among them, spoke first. "Our scouts report that dark creatures are emerging from Shimmerwood Forest in numbers far beyond what we've seen before. They roam farther from the shadows than ever, targeting outlying villages. Their behavior is driven by malice. They kill without need, sowing fear and destruction wherever they tread." Master Lenora nodded, her face pale. "The Obsidian Wraith's power grows unchecked. We had hoped it would remain confined to Shimmerwood, but these creatures are now bold enough to wander freely, with no restraint, no longer bound by the forest's shadows," Master Thalos added. "They no longer hunt as isolated threats. These are coordinated attacks, deliberate in their movements. The Wraith's influence has begun to stretch beyond the forest, spreading like a poison across Emberfall." The council's attention shifted as another mage, a younger member named Arik, cleared his throat. "We sent out our strongest mages to defend the villages, to provide some protection against these creatures, but—" He hesitated, the weight of his words evident in his voice. It wasn't enough. They could barely manage a handful of creatures at a time. Against the hundreds that emerged, they were outmatched. Master Lenora leaned forward, her voice laced with frustration. "We cannot afford to lose our people like this. The attacks have forced entire villages to flee to the city for safety. Every day, more refugees arrive, and our resources are strained to the breaking point." Eldric's gaze hardened as he spoke, his voice echoing through the hall. "We must turn our efforts to fortifying the main city. Our magic must be focused here if we are to protect what remains of Emberfall." Around him, the council murmured in agreement. The mages who had been sent to defend the villages now sat within the palace, recovering from their failed missions, their spirits dampened by the devastation they had witnessed. And though the city's defenses were strong, the strain on their power and resources was undeniable. Every day more people sought refuge within the city walls, and the mounting fear was palpable. Eldric took a deep breath, his gaze sweeping over the council. "Let us pray that Kaelen can succeed in finding the Dark Shard. If he can disrupt the Obsidian Wraith's source of power, we might weaken this terrible force and drive these creatures back to the forest." A murmur of agreement spread through the council, though a shadow of doubt lingered in their eyes. They had placed their hopes on a young, untested mage who was navigating a forest twisted by darkness and haunted by creatures of dark magic. But there was little choice left. The Obsidian Wraith's power was growing unchecked, and if Kaelen failed, the darkness would reach the city itself. Suddenly, the solemn stillness was shattered by the sound of alarm bells ringing out through the palace corridors. The council members tensed, turning toward the windows. Outside, the city's towers began to blaze with warning fires, casting an ominous glow over the gathering dusk. A scout burst into the hall, his face pale and stricken. "They're here," he gasped, his voice barely above a whisper. "An army, creatures of darkness, approaching the city walls." The council members exchanged fearful glances, the weight of the situation settling heavily upon them. Eldric rose to his feet, his expression steeled with determination, though his voice trembled ever so slightly. "All mages to the walls. Prepare every defense we have." As the council dispersed, each member ready to defend their city with the last of their strength, a single thought lingered in Eldric's mind. "Hurry, Kaelen. For all our sakes, find the shard." The council members moved swiftly, their footsteps echoing through the palace as they readied themselves for battle. The fate of Emberfall hung in the balance, and all eyes turned to the horizon, where shadows crept closer, bringing with them the promise of ruin.